Welcome to Survivor Scale. I'm H2 Mass, and today I'm ranking every main character in Ready or Not, where a game of hide and seek turns into a deadly battle for survival when a rich but desperate family of blood-sucking leeches begins hunting down its newest member for a ritualistic sacrifice. We start the film with a pair of kids running through a big-ass house until one of them hides in a wardrobe and the other encounters a man with an arrow in his gut who, for some reason, thinks a child would actually help him in his greatest moment of need. Instead, though, the kid named Daniel yells out for more people to shoot him, leading to the man taking another arrow and then getting dragged into the end of the prologue. Can't trust kids, man. 30 years later, we meet Grace rehearsing her vows before her fiance Alex Ladomas walks in and gives her bad luck by seeing his bride right before the wedding. I'm sure that's not gonna matter at all. As the ceremony approaches, Grace and Alex meet up with the guests, who make no effort to hide their disgust of everything Grace represents and their disdain at her attempt to join their family, culminating in a woman with a frown tighter than a sphincter holding back Taco Bell. Undeterred by the vitriol of Alex's family, Alex and Grace get married anyway, but before they can consummate the marriage a few hours later, Grace shows some observational skills and notices Alex's creepy-ass Aunt Helene lurking in the shadows. That's exclusive content. You gotta pay for it. With their sex time interrupted, Alex tells Grace that they now have to play a game with the rest of the family to initiate the ceremony they do every time one of their members gets married. Taking this whole thing very seriously, Alex's father Tony gives a long speech about this bizarre tradition, telling Grace that his forefathers built his family's wealth on a deal with a mysterious man named Mr. LaBelle, and that anytime a new person joins their dominion, they have to play a random game picked out of a box. Sounds fun. Unfortunately though, no! Instead of chess or Connect 4, she draws the only card that leads to death, hide and seek. Shocked at such an unlikely pick, Alex simply stares at his father, but Grace appears somewhat excited about getting to hide in the house, completely unaware of the consequences of what she just did. As Tony explains the rules to her, Grace shows some more observational skills when she notices one of the cameras the family have spread around the house. However, Tony reassures her that they play the games as they would have in the beginning, so they won't use the cameras. Sure. As the strange song counts down to the start of the game, Grace walks through the house alone in search of a place to hide. Elsewhere, Tony hands archaic weapons to the other family members as they prepare to hunt down and kill Grace, who still has no idea of the danger she now faces. Luckily for her though, Alex pulls her behind a bed before anyone else sees her, with Grace showing some solid composure by not overreacting and revealing her position like many other characters would, and instead simply trusting her husband without asking questions. As the newlyweds hide, one of the family maids walks into the room, but Alex's dysfunctional sister Emily comes out of nowhere and shoots the maid in the head. Then, to make it very clear to Grace how much danger she now faces, one of the other hunters comes in and scolds Emily for shooting the wrong person.
Does she look like she's wearing a giant white wedding dress?
The rest of the hunters then walk in, but not a single one of them takes even 3 steps into the room and notices the 2 people sitting just a few feet away. Instead, they all leave as they drag away the maid's body, allowing Alex to lead Grace through a secret corridor to a safer spot. There, he tells her that his family believes that if they don't kill whoever picks the hide and seek card by sunrise, something terrible will happen to the family. That sounds like BS. He then tells her to continue down this hidden passage and into the kitchen, as he goes into the security room to deactivate the lockdown procedures and allow Grace to escape the house. Unfortunately though, she displays poor memory when she forgets Alex's directions and ends up going through the wrong door, leading to some of the other family members finding her. Luckily for her though, the incompetent Emily arrives and shoots at her, but somehow misses every shot before dropping the gun.
I don't know what I'm doing!
Yeah, I can see that. After Emily just lets the target run straight past her, Grace goes into another room and tries to call the police, but unfortunately the phone doesn't work. Alex's brother Daniel then walks into the room, but instead of killing Grace, he just reveals his alcoholism and tells her that he has to alert the others of her position, but since he doesn't really want her to die, he'll let her run away before he calls them. A few moments later, Daniel yells for his family and tells them that Grace just left, but since Emily further displays her incompetence by now forgetting her gun, her husband hands her a crossbow, only for Emily to accidentally shoot another maid in the head. Oh, so now you can aim. With time running out to find Grace, the family decides to stop playing fair and use the cameras, but Alex has gotten to the security room first, locked the doors, and begun messing with the computers. Showing some resourcefulness, Grace stumbles across a gun on the wall and takes it, along with a bandolier of ammunition nearby. She then walks into the kitchen to escape, but finds the door still locked, so she aims the shotgun at it and pulls the trigger, only for nothing to happen. Now hearing someone approaching, Grace hides behind the counter just before the family butler walks into the room. As the man practices his whistling, Grace quietly loads the shotgun and shows her stealth as she stays hidden while the butler walks around the kitchen. Finally having figured out the security system, Alex manages to unlock the door, so Grace reveals herself and aims the shotgun at the butler. Showcasing her ruthlessness, she pulls the trigger, only for the gun to click once more, so she again shows some resourcefulness and hits him with an awfully hot coffee pot. As Grace runs away from the bumbling butler, Daniel and Tony arrive at the security room and try to stop Alex, who shows some ruthlessness and nearly chokes his dad to death, but stops before he dies. As Alex tries to convince Daniel to help him, Tony regains his energy and knocks out Alex from behind before handcuffing him to a bed frame to keep him from moving. Grace then escapes the house and runs into a stable to hide from one of the family members looking for her. When they walk inside though, it turns out to be a child, so Grace lets her guard down to ask a kid for help as if he could actually do anything, but ends up getting shot in the hand as the kid tries to take her out too. Can't trust kids, man. Grace then punches the kid in the face, but shows extreme skittishness when a goat surprises her so badly that she falls backwards 8 feet and crashes into an underground pile of carcasses. Demonstrating some very impressive resolve, Grace climbs the dilapidated ladder with one hand and hangs on even after a nail completely penetrates her other one. And she doesn't even scream! Oh. Well, I guess she does. With the kid still knocked out, Grace leaves the stable and runs to the edge of the property, but can't make it past the gate. Fortunately though, she finds a weak part and breaks it off, creating just enough space for a character with high resolve to squeeze through as the metal slices her skin. She then asks for help from a car coming through, but they just tell her to get off the road before immediately driving away, so she gives us the uncensored version of what SpongeBob and Patrick said when they learned how to cuss.
You fucking animal, you piece of shit, little tiny dick licker fucking asshole fucking eye!
Grace then continues trying to escape on foot, but the butler quickly approaches in a car and then tackles her to the ground. Before he can tranquilize her though, she demonstrates some resolve and scratches his face, then improves her performance by choking him with a piece of her dress. Good job! She then steals his car, but instead of killing him like she attempted to before, she shows only mild killer instinct and simply drives off. With things finally seeming to go her way, Grace uses the car to call for help, but the dumbass assistant on the other end thinks she stole the car, so he disables it and locks her inside, citing company policy as his excuse. How are they even allowed to do that? Locking you inside? Suddenly though, the butler arrives and breaks the window before shooting Grace with a tranquilizer. As he drives her back to the house to perform the ritual, he blares music so loudly that he can't hear the family yelling at him through the phone to watch out for Grace, who has regained consciousness. With his attention unpaid, Grace kicks the butler in the head, causing him to crash the car. Luckily though, Grace doesn't sustain any major injuries and crawls out, only for Daniel to step out of the shadows and point a gun at her. As Grace pleads for her life, Daniel initially considers letting her go, but eventually walks up to her and knocks her ass out. Man, I thought he was good. After bringing Grace back to the house, the family begins the ritual by drinking some red stuff from a chalice, but just before killing their sacrifice, Tony experiences some gastrointestinal distress and drops the knife. As everyone else begins vomiting, Daniel unties Grace and smoothly dodges a punch, showing his selflessness after having mildly poisoned his family. Is that selfless? He and Grace then hide under a staircase as his family looks for them, but when they think they finally have an opportunity to escape, Daniel's wife Charity points a gun at Daniel and tells him to move so she can shoot Grace. Since he doesn't move though, Charity shows some ruthlessness and self-preservation as she shoots her husband in the neck, but then just stands there as Grace walks up to her, takes the gun away, and then knocks her out. Grace then checks on Daniel, and though he seems to be on the brink of death, she displays her self-preservation and just leaves him. Yeah, he was gonna die anyway, but it's pretty crazy that she just left him. I mean, she didn't even try to help. As Grace continues her escape, she encounters Tony and promptly knocks him to the floor, but then runs into Alex's mother Becky, who fails to shoot her with an arrow, so she ends up tackling her and begins choking her to death. Grace though shows some resourcefulness and grabs something nearby, allowing her to not only knock out Becky, but bash her brains in. Nice. Unfortunately though, when Grace gets up, she realizes that Alex had been standing there while she turned his mother's brain into Ladomas puree.
Fatality.
With his brother and mother now dead, Alex has a change of heart and decides to side with his original family, so he restrains Grace and calls everyone to him. With very little time left, they all gather in the dining room and place Grace onto a table as they once again begin the ritual, with Alex now leading. Right before he kills her though, she takes advantage of the family's incompetence and turns to the side to avoid a fatal stab, grabs the knife, and then runs to the corner. With daylight shining on the family, they all expect to die. But nothing happens.
I fucking knew it. It's all bullshit.
Alex's asshole aunt though doesn't care and still wants to kill Grace.
The girl still dies!
Huh. I guess it was real. After every other Ladomas explodes, Alex somehow survives. Just long enough to blow up a little closer to Grace. With the house now burning down, Grace sits on the steps and takes a smoke break, her strong composure, resolve, and ruthlessness leaving the brutal bride with a bewildering backstory in S tier. But that's it. The average ranking for this cast was B tier, completely carried by Grace. While I'm not as high on this movie as many other people, I still had a lot of fun with it, doing a pretty good job of balancing drama, horror, and comedy. I mean, who doesn't like seeing people burst into blood? Thanks for watching.